Hi, I'm Daz. I'm the producer of The Drift, and it's been quite an exciting week in the last week or so. We had a visual effects sort of weekend, like a mega marathon weekend, where John, our lead visual effects artist, was here. So was Helen, who's our visual effects sort of supervisor. Her job is to coordinate and to coordinate with the artist to make sure that we're getting shots done when we're ready to give shots out, and also to monitor what shots have been done and where we are with them. And I have to say, that's no small task. At one point, there was around 2,500 visual effects, or we thought we had 2,500 visual effects to produce. And having here this weekend, we've kind of gone through and gone through the whole sort of movie and looked at how obviously the movie's got more got tight to edit. We've taken some scenes out and what have you, and having took out those elements that are no longer needed, as well as anything that's been duplicated, or where we've changed our mind on a type of shot. So, for example, there were some scenes where we wanted to have inside the drift, we want to have like a sort of flickering effect, and whilst that's going to take place in some elements of the film, we kind of realised in accordance with the story, it didn't have to happen in other areas of the movie. So by putting all that together, by sitting around, in one place, we've managed to go from 2,500 shots down to 1,400 or thereabouts. Which is great. And the other thing is that we've kind of figured out we've got a current sort of CGI count as well. So how many CGI shots we have in the movie. These are shots where it's pure CGI. So basically, we're outside in space looking at something, and there's nearly 300 of those. So there's a lot of shots. Having said that, of those sort of 300 shots, around about 280 or so we've already got to the pre-visual stage, and in fact so much so we've done so well there that we're actually starting to do some proper render tests, which is what we've got going on at the moment. We've got the computers rendering away in the background, and we're looking, as always, with our test phase, which we're still in at the moment, ready for our kind of final push on the render side. We're sort of setting the standard as high as we can. And then we sort of scale back. So what is that? Why are we doing that, and why are we scaling back? Well, it's all about time, basically. So it's how long it takes for a shot to render. I'll give you an example. This is a 10-second shot at the moment of one of the ships on the drift, and that's taken so far nearly a week to render. So something's telling me that we're probably going to have to change some of the settings, and John has already looked at it and said, well, yeah, we know what we can change, and we've done the right thing. Rather than sell ourselves short, we're looking at, well, okay, well, how high quality can we make this? What can we do to really make it look as good as we can? What are the essentials? What are the desirables? And the other thing is, it's not just a case of just turning a CGI picture, into a set of pictures, into 25 frames a second or whatever. It's also about being able to change that image after we've rendered it. So what does that mean? Well, just like when you shoot live action, sometimes it might be a bit too bright, a bit too dark, or you want to grade it with everything else, the live action, stuff like that. And also we want to make it look like we've kind of filmed it with one of our cameras, and it's not just a computer graphic that we've slapped on over the top. So that requires an element of sort of control after we've rendered it, and I'm not quite sure all the technicalities of it. I don't know if it's HDR or some other thing, but basically John has set it up so that we're rendering separate frames that we put together, and then we have the luxury of being able to adjust those without losing quality, because sometimes when you compress things and stuff, and you change the brightness or the contrast or the colour or whatever, you're recompressing, uncompressing, recompressing, that kind of stuff. So John has been very careful to give us the best options we can have to allow us that flexibility. Now that, of course, comes at a cost, which is time. And obviously now we've gone to the extreme, so we need to sort of bring that back, rather than sort of abandon we knew it was going to take a while. Some of our earlier tests, it was taking like sort of 7 minutes a frame, and this one's taking about an hour a frame, or slightly longer, about an hour and a half a frame. And of course, when we're not rendering, rather these same computers are also being used to edit. So it renders overnight, and when I'm away during the day or whatever, that's when it's set up to rendering. So that kind of brings on to the sort of the next thing, which is, we have to have sort of good housekeeping, that we have to be able to use these computers when we're not using them, as in we have to set them to render them before we go to bed, if we're going to go out shopping or go to work, whatever like that. You've got to be able to maximise the use of the computer. And we actually have several computers here set up, working in the background, connected to each other and rendering. So hopefully by in the next sort of week or so, we're going to be able to be in a much better position just to test something and try and get it down to back to the 7 minutes, perhaps 10 minutes per frame rather than the hour it's taking at the moment. And these are pretty high spec computers. They're 32 gig or 64 gig RAM and i7 solid state drives, like kind of stuff that Matthew has built. So he's the uber tech mega geek who has been building these computers for us, getting the Windows installed, getting it all licensed and checked and cleared, and then giving them to me to then make them, just work them to death. So we have got some pretty good computers. We don't have many, and hopefully once we've decided exactly what our render process is and how we're going to move files around, then we can outreach to people who have got 3ds Max and who have got computers that are capable of running and loading these files up. Because that's been the other problem we've had, is that some of these there's nearly 500,000, it must be nearly 500,000 objects, because you've got all the fragments of bits of space rock and all that kind of stuff that's in there. There's so much stuff in there that sometimes some of our other computers that I've got just don't have the capacity to even load the file to be able to render it. It's like, imagine it's like a bucket. If your bucket's only so big, it can only put so much water. If you've got like more water than your bucket will hold, doesn't matter how fast or slow your computer is, it just can't fit all the water in the first place. So it's a bit like that. Some of the computers we've got just don't have the capacity in the first place, even just to load the file. So hopefully it gives you an idea of kind of the sort of the magnitude of the detail that we're attempting to make this work. So that's really good. And the next thing now really, I've got another sort of visual effects weekend coming up this weekend, and the idea there is that John will be here again, and we're going to start looking at more sort of finer detail in terms of things like lighting, not just the sort of lighting inside the drift, but also lighting of the ships, understanding the concept of, you light your set or your location, then you light your subject, shadows, the use of shadow, and we've done some test work with some really nice shadow work, giving the ship some real sort of three-dimensional feel. But also sometimes the shadow is too much and it's too dark, and then suddenly you can't see anything. And sometimes that doesn't really work. If you've got space and it's dark, as in the ship is dark as well as space, then you kind of not really see anything. If you've got the sun shining behind it, you get like a silhouette or some sort of flare or something, then that's okay. So we're going to look at that this week. At the same time, what Helen's doing now is, now that we know that we've got 1,400 and whatever it is shots currently, and it will go up a little bit because there are still some parts of the film that haven't quite been sort of finalised with the pre-visuals. But the idea now, we've got these 11 beats, the 11 parts of the movie, is that we can quantify each one of those areas, so know exactly how many there are, and have a proper tally, and start writing notes on each of them. Because once you start breaking it down into those groups, just worrying about one beat at a time, which is typically around about sort of 9-10 minutes. Once you're just worrying about that, it's much easier to get your head round it and start talking about each sequence and each visual effect. So really, this weekend we'll be working with Helen, although she won't be here then, so we're doing it on the Hangouts, is to get her into sort of like a sort of battle rhythm in terms of managing a sort of housekeeping routine of going through a beat, checking all the bits, writing her notes, and having an action plan of what to do. So, for example, if you have a shot, a chroma key shot, where someone hasn't tracked it or wasn't able to, but they're able to chroma key it, then we need to write notes that particular shot needs tracking. And that's something else that we've also had to do, is what's called like conforming in sort of two ways. One is conforming to make sure we can access all the After Effects files, because we use CC, but people all over the place are using different versions. We need to sort that out. And the other thing is to make sure that the names of the visual effects all correlate. So when we were starting in the beginning, we had test shots and this shot, and so John was doing like a fly into drift shot and flying out of drift shot or whatever. Now we need to turn those into scene numbers with visual effect numbers, so that we're all talking about the same thing. And for the most part that's okay, but the CGI wasn't quite there, and that's fair enough, because we were doing a lot of testing there rather than just having shots. You've got a live action shot, you can just give it a number, but with CGI that is our live action effectively, so that's not quite so easy. And our live action that is live doesn't have a VFX number, so the CGIs didn't initially have a VFX number either. Now that we've done those, we give them a VFX number, So that way, we're all talking about the same thing. It all sounds very confusing, I suppose, in some ways, but to me, it makes perfect sense because I've been doing it for the last couple of years. So that's pretty cool. So that's kind of where we are. It's really good. There's still a long way to go, and I keep sort of sitting here thinking that a couple of things. One is that I spend a lot of time sort of testing and stuff, which isn't. Sometimes you think, is that just am I just procrastinating? Should I just be getting on with it? The fact is that these shots are so complex for us, with many layers, that if we don't get it right, and we have had problems in the past where we thought we got it right and we didn't, so we're being extra careful this time. If we don't get it right, then we're losing a lot of time. If it's going to take 27 hours, 30 hours to render a shot, if we get that wrong, we've just lost 30 hours. So we need to make sure we get it right, and that is taking a lot more time. But once we've done that, then we can start pushing out. And of course, the second thing I was saying about those two things is that it's taken a long time. And of course, that being mindful, of course, of all the people that who've been involved with the production. I mean, it's been a fair old while now, a good couple of years, and it's still going, and it's still not, the film, looking to come out in 2014. When we're still not sure, just going as fast and hard as we can. I just think it's important to sort of remind that people that I'm totally aware that we got a lot of people involved in this production, and we got a lot of people. Got them all riled up and said, this is going to be really big and really huge and what have you. And it's like, well, where's the movie, Daz? Where is it? We are working as hard as we can. Some things have happened already. I've written a few references for people who've been involved in the production, and that's helped them, move forward. I'm doing a few showreels for some of the people. The footage is available. Some people will want to show some of their visual effects in their own showreels. Some of the guys who built the Deliverance, people that have done some of the sort of crystal effects and stuff like that, they're already using that stuff before the films come out in their own showreels to show what they can do. So where I can, I am trying to give something back as soon as I can. But obviously the big time will be when the film finally comes out, which will be in 2014. But no, it's been good. A good week. Looking forward to the next week as well. Christmas is coming, so I assume things will slow down to a certain degree. But what I'm hoping is that when it slows down, as in when we slow down for our festive break, that the computers will keep going. And if we can get this render stuff sorted out, then hopefully over Christmas, they'll just keep chugging away while we're kind of eating away, enjoying our time off. So there we go.